In the quiet town of Crestridge, Georgia, the sheriff wasn't merely an authority figure. He was a beacon of stability, someone the townsfolk trusted unconditionally. Sheriff Matthew Holbrook, a dedicated 38-year-old lawman, was known for his calm approach and unwavering commitment. As a husband and father, he had protected his community for years. But the discovery of a young woman's body along the riverbank would soon shatter the town's peace. Crestridge wasn't accustomed to crime, especially not of this kind. There were no signs of struggle, no obvious reason for her death. The woman was identified as Aisha Khan, a 19-year-old Muslim girl from a local immigrant family. Her death was unexpected, but what followed was even more startling. As the investigation progressed, it became apparent that this was no accidental death, nor a simple crime driven by passion. Beneath Sheriff Holbrook's badge lay a secret no one could have foreseen: a hidden affair between Matthew Holbrook and Aisha Khan. Their clandestine relationship, concealed from the world, ignited a series of events marked by betrayal, deceit, and ultimately, murder. Welcome, as we dive into this story. Don't forget to like the video to support our work, and please share where you're tuning in from. Crestridge prided itself on its peaceful atmosphere, a town where the biggest scandals were usually trivial disputes or a speeding teenager on Main Street. Most residents had lived there for generations, and newcomers were rare. Everyone knew one another, finding comfort in the predictable routines of small-town life. It was a place unprepared for change, and even less prepared for tragedy. At the center of this tranquil community stood Sheriff Matthew Holbrook. At 38, he was more than just a sheriff. He was deeply respected not just for his title, but for his personal dedication to his duties. He had served as sheriff for 5 years and spent nearly a decade as a deputy prior. His life appeared ideal on the surface. He had a devoted wife, Susan, and 2 young children. The Holbrook family seemed like the perfect Southern family, complete with Sunday church gatherings and backyard barbecues. However, behind this idyllic exterior, Matthew's life was anything but perfect. His marriage with Susan had grown distant over the years. What was once a passionate relationship had dwindled into a predictable routine. While Susan was a devoted wife and mother, she focused heavily on the children and her community involvement, often leaving her marriage neglected. Matthew, too, had grown detached, immersing himself in his work to avoid confronting the emotional divide that had formed between them. In contrast, Aisha Khan was unlike most of Crestridge's residents. At 19, she was the daughter of Muslim immigrants who had moved to Crestridge about a decade earlier. The Khan family owned a small grocery store in town and were mostly respected by the locals. Aisha's family kept to themselves, their lives shaped by conservative beliefs and a strong adherence to cultural and religious traditions. Yet Aisha herself was different. Growing up, she was caught between the expectations of her family and her own yearning for freedom and independence. She was intelligent, ambitious, and restless, with big dreams of leaving Crestridge, attending college, and seeing the world beyond the confines of her small town. For now, however, she was still in Crestridge, working at her family's store and living under the close watch of her parents. A chance encounter brought Aisha and Sheriff Matthew Holbrook together. One day, a minor theft occurred at the Khan family store, and Matthew arrived to investigate. During this routine visit, he met Aisha for the first time. She was courteous and respectful, but there was something captivating about her, a spark in her eyes, a quickness to her words. She wasn't like other young women in Crestridge, and this piqued his interest. After their first meeting, Matthew found reasons to stop by the Khan family store more often. Casual conversations between the sheriff and the young woman soon turned into something deeper. Aisha asked Matthew about his work, his life as a lawman, and the stories of the town. Matthew, in turn, was drawn to her curiosity, her sharp mind, and the sense that she was looking for something more than her current life offered. At first, their exchanges were simple: innocent questions about the law, lighthearted jokes about town gossip. But over time, an unspoken tension grew between them. Aisha's fascination with Matthew went beyond his role as sheriff. He represented a world different from anything she had known. For Matthew, the attraction was powerful, Aisha's youth and energy made him feel alive in a way he hadn't felt in years. At home, his marriage to Susan had become more of a practical partnership. They shared responsibilities, but the emotional and physical connection had faded long ago. Susan was a dedicated mother, but her focus on their children and her community work left little space for their relationship. With Aisha, however, Matthew felt truly seen. She listened to him, challenged him, admired him, and he couldn't resist the allure of it all. The secrecy, the thrill, the rush of being with someone younger. What had started as a harmless friendship quickly crossed into something much more complex. One evening, after a particularly long day at the sheriff's office, Matthew found himself driving by the Kahn family store. It was late, and the town was quiet. He noticed a light still on in the store and decided to stop in. Aisha was there alone. As Aisha was closing up the store for the night, a few words passed between her and Matthew, but the tension was unmistakable, an intensity neither could ignore. Matthew knew the risks. He knew that if anyone discovered this, it would devastate his career and his family. But at that moment, standing in the dim light of the store, with Aisha looking at him with a mix of admiration and desire, he couldn't turn away. He reached out, his hand grazing hers, and that was all it took. Their first kiss was hesitant, but it was enough to release the emotions they had kept tightly controlled. From that night on, everything changed. They began meeting in secret, slipping away to nearby towns where they could go unnoticed, exchanging messages late into the night, and, over time, their relationship became physical. The affair brought Matthew the excitement, passion, and sense of being desired that he had been missing in his life. But as thrilling as it was also fraught with danger. Matthew was a respected public figure, and Aisha was the daughter of a devout Muslim family. If anyone found out, the repercussions would be disastrous. They both understood the stakes, yet the allure of their attraction was too powerful to resist. As weeks turned into months, their relationship grew more intense, but so did the weight of secrecy. For Aisha, the burden became increasingly hard to bear. She had always felt conflicted between her family's expectations and her own desire for independence. But now she was entangled in a web of lies that threatened to unravel her entire life. Her parents had begun urging her to marry, introducing her to suitable young men from similar backgrounds who could uphold the family's values. Yet Aisha wanted none of it. Her dreams were to attend college, to explore the world beyond Crestridge, but each passing day made those dreams feel more and more out of reach. The affair had given Aisha a sense of control, a way to defy the path her parents had planned for her, but it also left her feeling trapped. She knew their relationship couldn't last. Matthew was married with a family, and she was too young to be involved in such a complicated affair. The guilt gnawed at her, and fear of being found out kept her awake at night. Matthew, too, felt the strain. His double life was taking a toll. At home, Susan had noticed his late nights, his growing distance, his erratic mood. She didn't know what was causing the shift in him, but she sensed something was wrong. The affair had consumed Matthew's mind, and he found it harder and harder to maintain the facade of a devoted husband and responsible sheriff. As Aisha began to withdraw emotionally, Matthew's desperation grew. He didn't want to lose her, but he knew their time was running out. They both understood that something had to change, but neither was ready for what was coming next. We post new videos every day, so let's continue with the case. Early one Saturday morning, a local jogger made a chilling discovery: a body partially submerged in the shallow waters of Broadleaf River, lying completely still. At first, the jogger thought it might be an animal tangled in the water, but as he drew closer, the unmistakable form of a human body became evident. Alarmed, he quickly called 911. Within minutes, the Crestridge Sheriff's Department was on the scene. Sheriff Matthew Holbrook arrived, his heart pounding as he approached the body. What he saw froze him in terror. Aisha Khan lay in the icy water, her face pale, her clothing drenched, with no immediate signs of trauma. To most, it would have appeared as a tragic drowning accident, but Matthew knew better. The fear that had been gnawing at him for weeks erupted into sheer panic. He knew that no one could ever learn of their relationship. Not now, not ever. Soon after, Dr. Harold Banks, the county coroner, arrived and performed a preliminary examination. There were no obvious signs of harm, but something about the scene struck him as unnatural. Aisha's body seemed too undisturbed, too serene, almost as if it had been placed gently in the water rather than entering by accident. Dr. Banks ordered an autopsy, and Aisha's body was taken to the county morgue.
Meanwhile, Matthew struggled to keep his composure. He issued a statement to the press, offering his condolences to the Khan family and assuring the community of a thorough investigation into Aisha's death. But inside, he was falling apart. He knew that if anyone looked too closely into Aisha's personal life, the link between them would be discovered, and that would destroy everything. As the investigation into Aisha's death proceeded, Detective Eleanor Marsh from a neighboring county was brought in to assist. Known for her keen investigative instincts and her ability to uncover hidden truths, Marsh immediately sensed that something wasn't right. Although Crestridge was a small and quiet town, there was an undercurrent of secrecy, and Marsh was determined to bring it to light. Detective Marsh started by speaking with those closest to Aisha. Her grieving family told Marsh that Aisha had been behaving differently in the weeks leading up to her death, more withdrawn, secretive, and distant. She had evaded their questions about her future and seemed burdened, though her family had chalked it up to the struggles of young adulthood. Now, however, they wondered if there had been something more troubling beneath the surface. Aisha's friends also revealed glimpses of her recent struggles. She had confided in a few of them that she was seeing someone, though she kept his identity a mystery. She hinted that he was older, their relationship complicated, and she felt unsure of what to do. Her friends had thought it was just a fling, something that would pass, but now they realized they had missed warning signs. Detective Marsh's instincts told her that Aisha's death was no accident. There were too many unanswered questions, too many loose ends, but with no hard evidence, she didn't have much to go on. The autopsy results would take time, leaving Marsh with only her suspicions for now. As the investigation into Aisha's death moved forward, Matthew Holbrook's life began to unravel. Known for his discipline and order, qualities that had made him a respected sheriff, Matthew now found his carefully built life on the brink of collapse. The affair, the discovery of Aisha's body, and the investigation's mounting pressure weighed heavily on him. At home, his wife Susan was quick to notice the changes. Though Matthew was always private, his recent distance had grown unbearable. He rarely spoke during meals, often staying late at work or going on unexplained drives. At first, Susan's questions were gentle, but as his behavior grew more erratic, she started pressing him harder for answers. Unable to give her what she wanted, Matthew retreated even more, his guilt manifesting as irritability and paranoia. The true source of Sheriff Matthew Holbrook's fear lay in the evidence piling up around Aisha's case. As sheriff, Matthew had access to all the evidence, and with each new discovery, his anxiety deepened. He knew that if anyone uncovered his relationship with Aisha, it would be over. Not just his role as sheriff, but also his life as a husband, father, and respected community member. In a moment of desperation, he decided to take action. Late one night, he went to the evidence locker, using his authority to access Aisha's personal belongings. Her phone, found near the river, was damaged, and investigators hadn't yet retrieved any data from it. But Matthew knew that if they managed to unlock it, everything would be exposed. Their secret meetings, the affair, and the argument they'd had shortly before her death. His hands trembling, he deleted their messages and quietly discarded the phone in a faraway dumpster, convincing himself it was the only way to protect his family. Deep down, however, he realized he was weaving himself deeper into a web of lies he might never escape. Meanwhile, Detective Eleanor Marsh continued piecing together Aisha's life. By all accounts, Aisha had been a bright, ambitious young woman, hoping to leave Crestridge for college. But something had shifted in the months before her death. Her friends described her as more withdrawn, anxious, and secretive. Detective Marsh interviewed Aisha's grieving parents, Imran and Fatima Khan. They painted a picture of a dutiful daughter who had always respected their wishes. However, in recent months, they had sensed her growing distant. They chalked it up to her handling the challenges of adulthood, but now wondered if they'd missed something important. One of Aisha's friends, Lila Abbas, provided a crucial lead. She revealed that Aisha had been involved with an older man, but never shared his identity. Aisha had confided in her that she felt trapped, torn between her feelings for him and the fear of what her family would think. Lila recounted how Aisha had become increasingly anxious, worried things were moving too fast, and felt overwhelmed by the situation. This revelation set off alarm bells for Marsh. Who was this older man? And why had no one come forward about the relationship? As Marsh delved deeper into Aisha's online life, she found private messages with someone using the alias M. The messages were filled with emotional pleas, references to feeling trapped, overwhelmed, and wanting to escape. In one of the last messages, Aisha had written, "We need to talk. I don't know what to do anymore." Marsh felt she was closing in on the truth, but still couldn't determine M's true identity. Yet, she suspected that this man wasn't just anyone. He had power, a reason to keep their relationship hidden. Just as Marsh was connecting the dots, a mysterious call came into the sheriff's office. The caller, who refused to give their name, claimed to have seen Aisha meeting with a man just days before her death. The caller described him as in his late 30s, with dark hair, driving a black SUV, the same make and model as Matthew Holbrook's. This anonymous tip sent shockwaves through the investigation. Marsh had begun to suspect that Aisha's lover was someone with authority, and now her worst fears seemed confirmed. Yet without concrete evidence, she couldn't take further action. She needed something direct to tie Matthew to Aisha's death. Marsh decided to confront Matthew. Approaching him carefully, she asked routine questions about the investigation, subtly probing for any signs of guilt. Outwardly, Matthew appeared calm, but he sensed that Marsh was suspicious. He denied any relationship with Aisha beyond professional dealings, claiming his only interactions had been related to a theft at her family's store. But Marsh wasn't convinced. His avoidance of eye contact and his rehearsed responses stood out. She had dealt with enough suspects to know when someone was hiding something. Determined to uncover the truth, Marsh began reviewing town surveillance footage from the days leading up to Aisha's death. Though it was a long shot, she hoped that within the hours of footage, a clue would finally emerge. As the days turned into weeks, Detective Eleanor Marsh's investigation continued. Sifting through hours of security footage from local businesses and public spaces, she finally caught a break. A camera stationed outside a gas station on the town's outskirts had captured a fleeting but vital scene. Aisha climbing into a black SUV just a week before her body was discovered. Although the footage was too blurry to confirm the driver's identity, the vehicle matched the one Matthew drove. Armed with this new lead, Marsh returned to confront Matthew. She presented the footage, pressing him to explain why Aisha was seen entering a vehicle identical to his. Matthew denied any involvement, asserting that the footage was too indistinct to draw any conclusions. He maintained that he had no relationship with Aisha beyond his duties as sheriff and downplayed the footage as circumstantial. But Marsh wasn't convinced. The more Matthew tried to distance himself from Aisha, the more she suspected he was concealing something. Digging deeper into Matthew's personal life, Marsh began questioning his colleagues, friends, and even his wife, Susan. In an interview with one of Matthew's deputies, Marsh unearthed another critical clue. The deputy, who preferred to remain anonymous, shared that Matthew had been acting unusually in the weeks before Aisha's death. He'd been working late more frequently, taking unexpected trips out of town, and seemed uncharacteristically on edge. The deputy also recalled seeing Matthew meeting with Aisha on more than one occasion, though he hadn't thought much of it at the time. However, in light of Aisha's death, the deputy couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. With each new revelation, Marsh's suspicions grew. She felt certain that Matthew was hiding a secret, one that tied him directly to Aisha's death, but without hard evidence, she knew he would likely escape accountability. Just as Marsh was piecing together the fragments of her case, an unexpected source delivered a new breakthrough. While investigating Aisha's financial records, Detective Marsh uncovered a hidden bank account in her name. This account had been receiving substantial, regular deposits over recent months. Tracing the source of these funds was challenging, but after hours of research, Marsh managed to connect the deposits to a network of accounts linked to none other than Sheriff Matthew Holbrook. This discovery was a game changer. It suggested that Matthew had been financially supporting Aisha, likely in an attempt to keep their affair concealed. The funds seemed intended to secure her silence, but for Aisha, they had also become a crucial support as she navigated their complex relationship. Now, Marsh had enough evidence to confront Matthew directly. She summoned him for questioning, presenting the financial records, surveillance footage, and witness testimonies confirming his interactions with Aisha. Matthew's calm exterior began to fracture. At first, he tried to deny it all, claiming the money was related to an entirely different matter and that his meetings with Aisha were strictly professional. But Marsh wasn't convinced. She pressed further, highlighting the gaps in his story, the mismatched timeline, and the mounting evidence that pointed to an intimate relationship with Aisha. Realizing that the net was closing around him, Matthew felt the full weight of the situation pressing down. For the first time, he grasped that his secret was about to be exposed, and with it, his entire life could unravel. His career, his family, and his reputation all at risk of collapse. But just as it seemed Matthew was on the verge of arrest for Aisha's murder, an unexpected twist emerged, one that neither Marsh nor anyone involved could have foreseen. Matthew never anticipated the twist revealed by forensic evidence from Aisha's autopsy. She hadn't drowned, she had been poisoned. The toxic substance had been administered in small doses over time, ultimately leading to her death just days before her body was discovered. The toxin was rare, and further investigation traced its origin back to the Khan family store. This revelation left Detective Marsh stunned. She had been convinced that Matthew was responsible for Aisha's death, but now the evidence was pointing in an entirely new direction. The investigation took a dramatic shift as Marsh turned her focus to Aisha's family. It wasn't long before the truth came to light. Aisha's father, Imran Khan, had discovered his daughter's affair with Matthew weeks before her death. Driven by outrage over the dishonor he felt the relationship had brought to his family, Imran took matters into his own hands. In a chilling confession, Imran admitted that he had slowly poisoned Aisha, hoping to rid the family of the shame she had brought upon them. He had meticulously planned to make her death appear accidental, but his plan ultimately fell apart. The news of Imran's arrest sent shockwaves through Crestridge. Aisha's death, it turned out, was the tragic outcome of a father's misguided sense of honor, not the work of a corrupt sheriff. Yet, the damage had been done. Matthew Holbrook's life lay in ruins. Although he hadn't caused Aisha's death, their affair had been exposed, and the fallout was catastrophic. Forced to resign as sheriff, his marriage to Susan fell apart, and his once strong reputation was left in tatters. Once respected and admired, Matthew was now seen as a disgraced former sheriff whose secret affair had cost him everything. The impact of Aisha's death lingered over the town long after the case had closed. Her family was shattered by grief, and the community was deeply divided by the scandal surrounding the affair and the poisoning. This case exposed cultural and personal conflicts simmering beneath the surface, leaving scars that would never fully heal. Ultimately, the story of Sheriff Matthew Holbrook and Aisha Khan became a haunting cautionary tale, a grim reminder of how hidden desires, cultural pressures, and misguided loyalties can lead to unimaginable devastation. In search of passion outside his marriage, Matthew found only ruin. Aisha, a young woman caught between two worlds, paid the ultimate price for a love that was never meant to be. The tragic case revealed not only the dark secrets between Matthew and Aisha, but also the hidden tensions within Aisha's family that led to her untimely end. In the end, no one was left unscathed. Aisha was gone. Matthew's life was in ruins, and the Khan family was left to pick up the shattered pieces of their lives. The case served as a stark reminder of the peril in keeping secrets and the crushing weight of cultural expectations. As Crestridge tried to move on, the memory of Aisha's tragic death remained, a haunting reminder of a story that left no winners, only victims. Thank you for joining us today. Please like and subscribe to support our channel, and feel free to share your thoughts on this tragic case in the comments below.